Welcome to City Point Church. In case you haven't met, my name is Nathan. I'm the student pastor around here, and I have the privilege of sharing with you guys on Mother's Day. A little girl was sitting in her mom's lap, and she asked her mom if, she said, "Mom, did God make me?" Parents love hearing questions like that. And the mom said, "Yes, sweetie, God made you." And the little girl said, "Mom, did God make you?" And mom said, "Yeah, just like you, He made me." And the little girl said, Did God make Grandma?" And mom said, "Yeah, God made Grandma too." And the little girl said, "Seems to be doing better work these days." I really do love Mother's Day. I call that a Mother's Day joke because it's about moms, but the fact that we just have one day out of the year to honor moms doesn't seem like quite enough. The history of Mother's Day is really sweet. A lady by the name of Anna Jarvis wanted to honor her mom, and she started pushing for a Mother's Day holiday, a day to honor your mother, in 1903. The first day that it was actually celebrated on the state level, like we celebrate it today, is the second Sunday in May in 1908. And it wasn't until 1914 that it was declared a national holiday. But it's so important because mothers affect us more than anyone else in our entire lives. And so there was a lot of suggestions about what to do on Mother's Day online for pastors. And one of the big ones was to maybe let the congregation take a break and text their mom. And that's ridiculous. Your mom deserves way more than a text on Mother's Day. So here's what we're going to do. You guys have pens all around you. Get out your program and make sure your pen works. And I want you on your hand write, "Let Mom know I love her." You can do it on your hand or your wrist. Let Mom know I love her. Because no matter how busy you are, your mom is dying to hear from you. And she looks forward to this day because on this day there's a greater chance than on most. And maybe you're someone who doesn't have their mom with them anymore, and we grieve with you. Maybe you can't let your mom know that you love her today, but you can thank God for the influence that she's been in your life, and you can do something today that would make her proud. Because that's what we like to do. We like to do stuff that makes our mom proud. I went back and forth on whether or not to do a Mother's Day sermon, and ended up landing on the first time in the Bible that I really feel like mothers are honored, and going from there. And it's an interesting verse because nowadays we look back at the Old Testament and much of it seems archaic at times and old-fashioned. But if you look at in the historical context of the time, the Old Testament was extremely progressive. Extremely progressive. And so we get to the 10 Commandments, and commandment number 5 is found in Exodus 20:12, and it says, "Honor your father and your mother, so that you may live long in the land the Lord your God is giving you." The reason that that's progressive is because in Bible times, in Old Testy times, society was patriarchal. Right? The men had the power, and next in line were their sons. And in many cultures, women were seen as property. So the fact that God commands His people to honor their father and their mother in the same breath gives us a picture of His intention of what family is to be. Not a submissive wife who does her duty and goes unnoticed. And not a wife that takes charge and runs the house, but a husband and wife that work together to accomplish the goals of the family. I also think that it's interesting that there's no stipulation on these two parents. Right? It's not honor your father and mother if they're good to you. Just honor your father and your mother. And it's also interesting, this is the first commandment that comes with some explicit benefits immediately after. And that's that following part, says that so you may live long in the land your father, the Lord your God, is giving you. And it all comes down to this word, honor. It's kind of lost its meaning over time. I don't know, it kind of has a proper sound to me, like, I honor you, Father, I honor you, Mother, you know. But at the time, this word for honor meant, like, literally translated to weight. And in other places in the Bible, the word is used for a burden. Somebody carries a burden. It's the same word here used for honor. And what this is talking about is the family system at the time. You, as a kid, lived to make your family and your family's name carry weight. Because you were nothing without your family, right? This is a nomadic society. Extensive family groups live together. If you didn't have a family, you had nothing. And so it was your job in honoring your parents to bring weight to your family name. Our society's changed a lot since then. We don't live in large family groups. We see family a lot, hopefully. I think it's important to get together with your family as often as possible. But in American culture, it's not the norm to live with your in-laws like it is in a lot of places in the world. It's not the norm to have 5 or 6 generations together all under the same roof. And so we have to kind of look at this in a modern American viewpoint. So I want to spend a little bit of time talking about what it might look like today to honor your parents. Because I think that applies to everybody. Everybody here is the son or daughter of someone. Right? And at the end, we're going to spend a little bit of time looking at what it means to be an honorable parent. Because that's where I am in life, where many of us are in life. We'll look at some applications there. First off, I think honoring your parents looks different depending where you are in life. As a child, you don't have a lot to contribute to your family. And you guys hear me say this a lot. Maisie is extremely precious. My little 1-year-old is extremely precious. But she doesn't bring much to the table. She's pretty much being taken care of 24/7 in our house. And that's going to go on for a few years. She's not going to be able to contribute a lot of work to this family unit. So I think at that age, to honor your parents in your childhood means obedience. When you're told to clean your room, you clean your room. When you're told to eat the crust, you eat the crust. My parents told me the crust had more vegetables. More vitamins in it. Like, how is that even physically possible that that part of the bread has more vitamins? But that's why we had to eat the crust at home, because of the vitamins. But you do what you're told, right? Or there's consequences. And I remember as a child, hearing my mom. My parents were great parents and very authoritative, and they ran their house well most of the time. Sometimes it got crazy, but occasionally I would hear my mom say, if you cooperate with me, things will get done a lot quicker. But cooperate is the wrong word in this situation. Peers cooperate. The husband and wife cooperate to accomplish the goals of the family. Co-workers cooperate. Privates in the military cooperate. A CEO does not cooperate. The correct word is obedience. And so to some extent, us as a child, and you children who are still here, you're to obey your parents implicitly you don't need a reason. I loved it when my parents said that. Because I said so. But I think you learn a lot in that. Sometimes that's enough of a reason. Because I said so. But slowly you grow out of childhood and into adolescence. And because I said so doesn't cut it anymore. We get this angst that comes over us. And we're trying to find our place, right? We're transitioning into adulthood. And that can be difficult. Twain said, when I was a boy of 14, my father was so ignorant I could hardly stand to have the old man around. But when I got to be 21, I was astonished at how much the old man had learned in 7 years. Do you remember being at that place? Your parents didn't know anything. They didn't understand you. Oh, my parents don't understand me. What's crucial in that moment of your life, in honoring your household, is to respect your parents. You have to have respect for what they say. Respect them as a person. Don't talk about them with your friends about how terrible your parents are. I'm preaching to myself. I haven't quite grown out of that stage yet. That angst. I think it's because I work with the youth. But I remember specifically growing up, I went to church every day the doors were open. That was just how my family was. Bible studies, Wednesday nights. If the church building had the lights on, we were inside the church building. And it always used to bother me so much. On Sunday morning, my dad would wake up very early and he would iron dress shirts and slacks for me and my 3 brothers. And I hated it. And the tie, and I hated it. And I would just say, Dad, all the other kids are wearing t-shirts and shorts. Why do I have to dress like a homeschooler? And it's all right for me to say that because I was a homeschooler. But he was teaching me something, right, in that moment. And so out of respect for my dad, I continued to wear the nice shirts and the nice pants. I dressed myself this morning. Not really, Molly picked it out, but this is what I wear to work now. Because I got used to it as a kid. It's not something new. In fact, whenever I got married, I owned a lot of dress clothes because of my parents. That was important to them. This last week, I had a couple interviews. One of them was at the principal of Springdale High, where I'm working right now. And he complimented me on wearing a tie to work every day. He said he wished more of the faculty would do that because it shows a sense of responsibility. So at the time, I had no idea what my dad was trying to accomplish. I thought he was just trying to ruin my world, make me look ugly in front of my friends, ruin my chances. But he had intentions behind what he was doing. And then from there, we grow into adulthood, and I don't have to obey my parents anymore. And really, I don't have to respect them. I'm my own person in my own world now, out of their home. But even though I'm not a child, I'm still their child. And so what it looks like as we grow into adulthood is to honor our parents, we care. We heed their counsel. We call our moms on Mother's Day, and hopefully more often than that. So it was a tradition in the Jewish culture, after this commandment, to honor your parents, to make your family name have weight. Because without your name, all your family had was dishonor. And so slowly that became part of their culture, living together. You lived in community with your parents. And they raised you, they invested years and years into your life so that when they got older, you would take care of them. Until they died, they lived with you. And because the Jewish people were so good at making all these rules, some of the Pharisees had come up with kind of a workaround. so that you didn't have to take care of your parents. And they bring it, it's kind of called the tradition of the elders, these sets of rules. And they bring it up to Jesus one time about his disciples not following this tradition of the elders. Jesus kind of nails them to the wall. It's found in Matthew 15. Then some Pharisees and teachers of the law came to Jesus from Jerusalem and asked, "Why do your disciples break the tradition of the elders? They don't wash their hands before they eat." And they're trying to trick Jesus into taking sides. And Jesus comes right back at them and says, Jesus replied, "And why do you break the command of God for the sake of your tradition? For God said, 'Honor your father and mother,' and anyone who curses their father or mother is to be put to death." That's found just a few verses after the fifth commandment. "But you say that if anyone declares that what might have been used to help their father or mother is devoted to God, they are not to honor their father or mother with it. Thus you nullify the word of God for the sake of your tradition." What they were doing was declaring Corban, and this is an interesting tradition of the elders. You could just state, if you had some property, you could just state Corban over it, and then it was dedicated to God, and you didn't have to use that to take care of your parents in their old age. It kind of reminded me of a scene from The Office. Michael, the manager of the office complex, is in some financial difficulty, and one of the accountants tells him he'll probably have to declare bankruptcy. So he steps into the main office and says, "I declare bankruptcy!" And he thinks that covers it. That's what the Jewish people are doing with this law of Corban. They say Corban, 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 and then their parents are stuck without being taken care of. It was important to Jesus for us to take care of our family, especially when our parents are in their old age, because our family name matters. So that brings us to the parents, right? We're laying out the law on the kids. How do the parents live in an honorable way? It really brings up one of the downsides to teaching in a public school. I really wish I could quote scripture to these kids. Especially on the bad days, I would pull out stuff like Deuteronomy 21:18. "When a man has a stubborn son, a real rebel who won't do a thing his mother or father tell him, and even though they discipline him, he still won't obey, his father and mother shall forcibly bring him before the leaders of the city gate and say to the city fathers, 'This son of ours is a stubborn rebel. He won't listen to a thing we say. He's a glutton and a drunk.' Then all the men of the town are to throw stones at him until he's dead. You have purged the evil pollution from among you. All Israel will hear what's happened and be in awe." This had to have happened at least once. It's in there. Like, "Bertha, what are we going to do with this kid?" "Let's just kill him." It's there. But in reading that, you have to realize that society can't function that way. Right? You're killing off all your youth. I mean, if that law was still around, I wouldn't be here, because my parents were rebellious children. I was an angel. But on a serious note, it's our part in that story to bring honor to our family's name. So, there's a few things we have to realize about our children as parents. First off, our kids are a blessing, not a burden. I think many times in our culture, a kid is seen as a burden. It takes one of the parents out of the workforce, and it's an enormous investment. And if we raise our kids as a burden, they'll grow up to be a burden. But if we raise our kids as a blessing, they'll grow up to be a blessing. Psalms 127 says, this is Solomon writing, "Children are a heritage from the Lord, offspring a reward from Him." Kids are a blessing. They're enjoyment and entertainment. I don't know if you guys have been around a baby. Some of you have babies. They are thoroughly enjoyable. Molly and Mai's movie watching and television watching has dropped off significantly since Maisie's been born. So I say she doesn't bring much to the table, and I'm just talking like she can't mow the grass or dig a hole or anything like that yet. Because she is the most enjoyable person to be around, second to my wife. And kids teach us to love. They teach us self-sacrifice, discipline, self-control, patience, things that wouldn't be easy to learn without them. They bless us with their love and their trust. That crazy, undeserving, I love you love that only a kid can give. And eventually they will get to the point where they can assist us with our work. I don't know what the legal age is for you to have your kids mow the grass, but I'll wait a few years and find that out. It's a little bit less now than it was back then, kids helping out in the family affairs. And like I mentioned, kids are an assistance later in life. You're going to get to the point where you can't take care of yourself anymore. It's going to be nice to have some young whippersnappers around to help you unload the groceries and things like that. And then it also enlarges our impact on the world. It increases the weight of our family name. Because eventually you're going to die and people are going to forget about you. And if you don't have any kids, they're going to forget about your whole family. It's our children that remember us and extend our legacy. Children are the single greatest resource on the planet. So much can be accomplished with so little at the beginning. And it's really the reason why I am doing what I do today. I know your kids are a blessing to you, but they're also a blessing to me. I'm not stealing it, I'm just I get some of it. I enjoy being around kids. I enjoy watching the potential unfold. And that brings me to my third point about being noble parents. You could also throw in there noble adults, because it takes a village. And that is, our children are our responsibility. We continue in Psalms 127, like arrows in the hand of a warrior are children born in one's youth. I think it's funny that it says in one's youth. Like arrows in the hands of a skilled warrior. Have them young. They're not like arrows in the hand of a warrior, children born to a good dad, or a dad who's seasoned, or a dad who's got it down. Is what it takes to be a parent, even though we don't feel like it, it's there. That responsibility and our ability to take it on is there. I still feel like I'm 20 years old. It's weird. And whenever I found out we were going to have a baby, I think every dad's response is, I'm not ready for a baby. There's no way. Like, I'm going to kill it or something. But that little thing becomes our responsibility. And so as parents, we take ownership. That kid is mine to raise. Heard about a learning theorist, Glasser, this last year in some of my teaching classes. He had a very interesting spin on how he raised kids, and there was an example. Aaron was an 11-year-old boy whose behavior was described by Dr. Glasser, his psychiatrist, as horrible. In his book, Reality Therapy, Glasser says Aaron was the most obnoxious child he had ever met. The boy would kick, scream, run away and hide, become withdrawn, disrupt classes, make everyone disgusted with him. Dr. Glasser saw one problem with Aaron that no one else observed. No one had ever told him what he was doing wrong. No one had ever set limits on what he could do and not do. So the psychiatrist decided to try a completely new track. The boy would have to behave, he'd have to act reasonable, or there were consequences. He'd be punished. And the little kid responded remarkably. In his book, he said, probably because he had been anxious for so long to be treated in a realistic way. He just wanted to know what was expected of him. And to know what's expected of you, you have to have people in your life to say, these are the boundaries. And that's our responsibility as parents. I think all parents worry about how their kids are going to turn out. Are they going to be terrible people? Are they going to work in the food industry? Are they going to become doctors? I remember talking with my mom one time about the difficulty of setting up boundaries. I think it was because as a teenager I was complaining that the baby of the family got away with more. Which happens. Those boundaries slap off as the kids get older. And she kind of said, it's kind of like putting up fences. And you don't know where they're actually supposed to go, but it's a lot of work to set them up. I don't know if you guys have ever dug a fence hole, but it's difficult labor. And you spend all this time as a child working to set up all these boundaries, and then they go off to high school or they go off to college, and all of a sudden these fences are ripped up. All these boundaries that you spent so much time working on are torn up. But if you ever built a fence, you know digging holes is really difficult. It's much easier to put a fence post in a hole that's already dug than it is to try to figure out where to dig a new hole. And so I don't want to be that shotgun dad who's waiting for his daughter's boyfriend to make a mistake. We have to be proactive. We have to set up those boundaries ahead of time because our kids are our responsibility. They're our blessing and our responsibility, and finally, they're our followers. Back to Psalms 27, verse 5. Like arrows in the hand of a warrior are children born in one's youth. An arrow has no power unless it's guided by a skilled marksman. And it doesn't always work for us to tell our kids what to do. Those little eyes watch you all day long. James Baldwin, the American novelist, essayist, playwright, poet, and social critic, writes, children have never been very good at listening to their elders, but they have never failed to imitate them. Macy's already starting to pick up on the little things that Molly and I do. She learns language by the things that we say and the way that we ask her to say things. She talks to her cousin Lyndon just like her uncle Samuel talks to her in his high-pitched, sweet-sounding voice. On the way here, I watched in the rearview mirror while I was driving. I glanced up. She watched Molly for 5 minutes straight put on her makeup. Just watched. Those kids are learning from us, and not just their parents. And there's more responsibility on the parents, but they're learning from us what it means to be a contributing member of society. And it's become more and more difficult to determine what that actually is. See, I remember a time before my house had a computer. Like, I remember my family getting its very first computer. And I remember when my parents got their very first cell phone. And I got a dumb phone whenever I was a junior in high school. And remember the day that the smartphones were released. I didn't have a smartphone. I think I got a smartphone after I was married at the very end of college. I remember whenever my parents didn't have cable, we watched a lot of PBS, some Bill Nye the Science Guy. I remember my house not having internet. And I think I will be the last generation to remember that. Because today, 83% of households have internet. So, your kids are learning how to be adults from someone. Do you know who that is? That's a good question to ask yourself. And your child is bombarded with information 24/7, 365 all the time. I mean, short of just falling asleep, they're waking up and getting on their phones and on their iPads. And the things that have become popular now are shorter and shorter time links, information packed into smaller and smaller packages. And I'm not saying this is bad. I think it's amazing. The fact that on my phone, Molly and I can listen to the Bible every day. I can't demonize that. Learning happens so quickly and seamlessly. It astounds me that the entirety of human knowledge can be held in our pocket. And if you want to know something in seconds, you can know it. But is that what it's being used for? Slowly and slowly, parents are being replaced by other things in these kids' lives. I had an issue with a student a couple weeks ago. We were reviewing for a test, and it was a group activity, and he just sat there, giving me the silent treatment. So I pulled him out in the hallway, and I called his dad. I thought, that'll fix it. My dad would be furious if a teacher called me, even though it was my mom. I called his dad, and his dad wanted to know what was wrong. I said, he's not participating. We're trying to get ready for a test, and he's just sitting there quietly. And the dad's response was, if he's sitting there quietly, not bothering anybody, then why are you calling me? Do you think that might be the way he's treating his home? If I can't hear him, how can anything wrong? How can anything be going wrong? It's important to do things as a family, to contribute weight to our family name. The teenagers might hate me for saying this, but I think it's important for families to have game nights and hiking trips. I finally look back on the camping trips that my family took as a kid. We just go off for a few days into the woods as a family. Of course, no television, but at the time we didn't have phones and stuff like that. You were just your family. That was it. That was the only people in the world. Your family. Eating dinner together at the table as a family. It's crucial for the health of your family. The fellowship that happens, the conversations that take place. If you can take anything away today, when you sit down at a meal, even if you're a bachelor, you should be sitting with family. It's how we grow, it's how we learn, it's how we become human beings. And finally, I just want to address, some of us don't have good parents. Some of us don't have those examples. We come from broken homes and torn up lives and blended families, and people are broken and fallen. Even my parents, I grew up in a Christian home, and they had their issues and things, their scars that they left with me. But the benefit of all of this is everything that we've applied to honoring our family and bringing weight to our family name, we've been adopted into a family. We are children of God. John writes in his first letter, but friends, that's exactly who we are, children of God, and that's only the beginning. Who knows how we'll end up? What we know is that when Christ is openly revealed, we'll see him, and in seeing him, become like him. See, God's a perfect parent working out a perfect plan in our life. Perfect example of what that parent should be and do. And he sent his son as an example of the perfect child. We picture Jesus as a little baby in a manger and as an adult dying on the cross. But Jesus was a preteen. A sinless preteen. If that's the only time in history that was possible. But he did. And he gives an example of this honoring. In Luke 2, his parents lose him, and they find him in the crowd during the festival, and he's in the temple talking with the rabbis and the priests about the Bible. And they snatch him up, and they ask him all kinds of questions. And then we pick up in verse 51. So he went back to Nazareth with them and lived obediently with them. At the time he was probably 14 years old, lived obediently with them. So Jesus as a child was obedient to Mary and Joseph, just like we as children are obedient to our parents. And Jesus mentions that everything that he said came from the Father. And then talk about taking care of your parents. He starts his dad's kingdom on the earth. And he invites us to be part of it. So, you might have a rough situation at home. You might not want to call your mom today. You still have to. That's your homework. But no matter your situation, we can look forward to something bigger and something better because we have a better family. And our family's name weighs a lot. We've been adopted into a family full of honor so that we can fill our family, earthly family, with honor. Let's pray.